The story of the French Revolution is often remembered as a tableau of ideals: liberty, equality, fraternity. We recall the philosophers, the fiery speeches, and the fall of a tyrannical prison. But before the cries of freedom echoed through Paris, a quieter sound came first: the scratching of pens across empty balance sheets. The revolution did not begin in a salon of philosophy. It was born in the collapsed treasury of a bankrupt kingdom. The guillotine was a political weapon, but it was forged by the ruthless arithmetic of national insolvency. For centuries, the French monarchy, embodied by the dazzling excess of Versailles, lived under the illusion of infinite wealth and divine sanction. In reality, its financial system was archaic and corrupt, incapable of sustaining a modern state. While Britain had built a robust system of national credit through the Bank of England, a transparent bond market that funded empire, France remained stuck in medieval financial practices. At the core of this dysfunction was a system of privilege and extraction. Taxes were not collected directly by the state, but outsourced to private contractors known as the fermiers généraux. These tax farmers paid the king a fixed sum upfront for the right to collect taxes in their region. Their incentive was not fairness, but profit, squeezing peasants and urban poor for every centime, pocketing the difference between what they paid the crown and what they extracted. For the commoner, the predator was not a distant monarch, but a local figure who grew rich off their misery. This system was not only inefficient, it was an engine of class hatred. Worse still, the wealthiest citizens paid the least. The clergy and nobility enjoyed sweeping exemptions from major taxes like the taille, the land tax. Representing less than 2% of the population, they owned most of the land and wealth, yet contributed almost nothing. The burden of financing the state, its wars, courts, and pageantry fell squarely on the third estate: merchants, artisans, and laborers. It was not taxation, it was legalized extraction. This fragile system collapsed under the weight of war debt. Throughout the 18th century, France fought costly conflicts, borrowing desperately at high interest. The final blow came with France's intervention in the American War of Independence. King Louis XVI poured hundreds of millions of livres into defeating Britain. Victory in Virginia was sweet, but it left the treasury in ruins. By the 1780s, France was insolvent. Interest payments consumed more than half of annual revenue. Imagine a household where 60% of income goes to credit card debt, nothing left for food or repairs. France was trapped in a death spiral, borrowing more just to pay interest on old loans. Then came poor harvests in the late 1780s. Bread was the foundation of the French diet, often consuming 70% of a worker's wage. When grain prices doubled or tripled, it was not inconvenience, it was starvation. Riots over bread prices ignited the political tinderbox. The revolution began with debt, but it exploded with hunger. Finance ministers like Turgot and Necker tried reforms. Turgot sought to abolish tax exemptions. The nobility resisted. Necker published royal accounts to restore confidence, but instead revealed the terrifying deficit. Privileged classes refused to share the burden, sealing their own fate. With no options left, Louis XVI summoned the Estates General in 1789, an assembly dormant for 175 years. Intended to raise taxes, it gave the Third Estate a national platform. When reforms were blocked, the commoners declared themselves the National Assembly. The revolution had begun, not with abstract philosophy, but with bankrupt ledgers and empty stomachs. The new revolutionary government inherited the monarchy's crushing debt. Soldiers were unpaid, creditors circled, and ideals could not buy bread. In 1790, the Assembly seized the vast wealth of the Catholic Church, confiscating lands and declaring them national property. These assets became collateral for a bold experiment, the assignat. Assignats were paper notes backed by confiscated church lands. Issued to pay debts, they promised stability and democratic renewal. At first, confidence soared. The notes were accepted eagerly, symbolizing revolutionary success. For a moment, it seemed the debt crisis was solved. But paper money carries a curse. Once governments discover the ease of printing, restraint vanishes. The revolution was expensive: armies, food subsidies, bureaucracy. Under pressure, the Assembly printed more assignats, far beyond the value of confiscated lands. By 1792, billions flooded the market. Hyperinflation followed. Prices soared, confidence collapsed, and farmers refused to trade grain for worthless notes. Britain exploited the weakness, counterfeiting assignats and smuggling them into France, accelerating the collapse. The social contract disintegrated. Workers saw wages evaporate before they could buy food. Merchants lost savings. Inflation punished the poor while rewarding speculators. The government responded not with discipline but terror. Price controls failed, shortages spread, and those who resisted were branded traitors. The guillotine became an economic weapon, punishing those who refused to accept worthless paper. By 1796, the assignat was worthless. It was replaced by the mandate territorial, which collapsed almost immediately. France lurched from one failed currency to another, proving a timeless law. People eventually reject money divorced from scarcity and integrity. Into this chaos stepped Napoleon Bonaparte. When he seized power in 1799, he understood that empire required sound money. In 1800, he founded the Bank of France, modeled on Britain's system, and restored specie backing with gold and silver. The message was clear: the era of speculative paper was over. Stability had returned, backed by metal, not promises. The French people, exhausted by chaos, embraced order, even under a dictator, because he offered financial security. The financial collapse of the revolution is a historical rhyme repeated across centuries. Reckless borrowing, unequal burdens, and the temptation to print unbacked currency always end the same way. Weimar Germany in the 1920s, Zimbabwe in the 2000s, and echoes in today's world all follow the same script. Inflation punishes savers, erodes wages, and frays the social contract. The revolution teaches a hard truth: the foundation of any free society is not its constitution or rhetoric, but the integrity of its money. When governments lose the trust of creditors and citizens, no ideals can hold the center. The warning is clear for today: financial literacy is self-defense. Never place blind faith in promises of stability. When debt is high, taxes unequal, and printing becomes the solution, the system is brittle. True wealth lies in knowledge, skills, and assets that cannot be erased by decree. The Bourbons and revolutionaries learned too late that political revolutions cannot survive monetary collapse. The guillotine is gone, but the consequences of financial rot, extremism, chaos, and surrender to strongmen remain the inevitable price of fiscal recklessness.